If money were neutral, they wouldn't need to manage it. For your entire life, you have been taught a comforting lie, that money is simply a convenient tool for trade, a neutral measure of value that helps us exchange our time and labor for the things we need. You were told that it is a store of value, a way to bottle your hard work today and save it for a distant tomorrow. But today, on Finance Through Time, we are declassifying the truth that has been hidden in plain sight for centuries. Money is not a passive tool. It is an active system of governance. It is the invisible architecture of a prison where the walls are made of debt and the guards are made of algorithms. If money were actually a neutral store of value, its supply wouldn't need to be manipulated by a handful of unelected men in quiet rooms. The fact that they must manage it is proof that it is being used to steer you. To understand how money became a weapon of control, we have to travel back 5,000 years to the dusty plains of Mesopotamia. Most people think the first financial system was born in a marketplace between merchants, but they are wrong. It was born inside the temple. The great ziggurats of Sumer were not just religious sites, they were the world's first central banks and tax offices. The land didn't belong to the people. It legally belonged to the gods, which meant the priests were the world's first professional fund managers. They used the first writing in human history not to pen poetry, but to record grain debts and labor obligations. The very origin of literacy is accounting, and the very origin of accounting was the control of human behavior through the ledger of the gods. The priests realized early on that if you control the resources people need to survive and place those resources behind a sacred institution, you control the population without ever needing to pull a sword. This template of control never disappeared, it simply evolved. As civilizations grew, the gods were replaced by kings, and the grain was replaced by clipped coins. But the true mastery of money as a control tool was achieved in 1694 with the birth of the modern central bank. England was drowning in war debt and turned to a group of private financiers for a loan. In exchange, these bankers were given the most dangerous privilege in history, the right to issue paper money backed by the state's own debt. This was the birth of the bond trick, where money is no longer something you earn, but something the state borrows into existence. From that moment on, the relationship between the citizen and the state flipped. You were no longer just a resident. You were a unit of collateral for a national debt that was never intended to be repaid. The battlefield moved from the front lines to the balance sheet, and the currency became the leash. The trap was finally locked in 1971 when the world entered the era of pure fiat currency. When the dollar's link to gold was severed, money stopped being anchored to any physical reality. It became a pure abstraction, a digital pulse that could be multiplied or erased at the stroke of a key. Since that night, money has been a belief system enforced by policy, not a measure of productivity. This is why central banks target 2% inflation. It isn't for your health. It is to ensure that you are constantly in motion, running faster and faster on a treadmill of consumption, because the currency in your pocket is designed to melt. If you stop running, you lose your purchasing power. If you save cash, you are volunteering to lose your time. The system requires you to stay in debt and stay in motion, so that the first ones, the elite who receive the money before it is diluted, can continue to capture the world as real assets. The management of money is, in reality, the management of human energy. By manipulating interest rates, central banks decide who gets to expand and who is forced to contract. When they lower rates, they encourage you to borrow, tying your future labor to their current ledger. When they raise rates, they decide which small businesses must die to cool the economy. These are not economic adjustments. They are acts of social engineering. They choose winners and losers based on who is closest to the fountain of new money. This is the Cantillon effect in its purest form. The closer you are to the source of money creation, the more power you have to buy reality at yesterday's prices. By the time that money reaches your paycheck, its magic has already been spent, and you are left to pay the inflated retail price for your own survival. History shows us that every empire that reaches this stage, where money becomes a tool for extraction rather than a store of value, is an empire walking toward a reset. From the debased silver of Rome to the paper illusions of the French Revolution, the logic never changes. The controllers will always prioritize the stability of the machine over the sovereignty of the individual. They will print, they will borrow, and they will spend until the trust finally breaks. The question isn't whether the money is real. The question is whether you realize that your time is being used to collateralize a debt you never signed for. We are currently living inside the largest financial experiment in history, standing on a mountain of $315 trillion in debt that is held together by the hope that you will keep believing the story. Money isn't a store of value. It is a permission slip issued by the state, and permissions can be revoked. Once you see the leash, you can no longer unsee it. The story of your financial life is not about how much you earn, but about how much control you are willing to surrender for the illusion of safety. If the first part of our autopsy revealed how money became a tether, this second part will show you how that tether is being turned into a high-tech shackle. We have moved from the temple ledgers of Babylon to the bond tricks of the 17th century. But the ultimate evolution of money as a control tool is only now beginning. In the corridors of power today, the architects are preparing the final layer of the architecture, central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. Do not be fooled by the promise of faster transactions or the convenience of a cashless society. Today, your money is a claim on a bank, and you still have the illusion of choice. Tomorrow, your money will be a programmable permission issued directly by the state, and permissions can be revoked at the stroke of a key. This is the end of the concept of private savings and the birth of a system where your wealth is a variable managed by an algorithm. To understand the danger, you must understand the concept of programmable money. Imagine a world where the currency in your account has an expiration date, forcing you to spend it on goods the state deems necessary rather than saving it for your own future. Imagine money that cannot be spent on certain items if your social score or carbon footprint is deemed too high. This is the ultimate tool of social engineering. The management of the money supply will no longer be about balancing the economy. It will be about balancing your behavior. The leash has become digital, and the hand holding it now has total visibility into every second of your life. This is the logical endpoint of a system that abandoned real value in 1971 to embrace pure policy. When money is no longer tied to anything physical, it becomes whatever the person in control wants it to be, a reward for obedience or a punishment for dissent. The control tool also operates through the weaponization of data and psychology. We see the echoes of projects like MK Ultra in the way modern financial systems operate. They no longer need to break the mind through chemistry when they can steer it through code. Behavioral economics has turned your desire, your fear, and your greed into data points for the next round of stimulus or the next interest rate hike. The system doesn't want you to be financially free. It wants you to be in a state of perpetual emotional imbalance, because a consumer who is anxious is a consumer who is easier to manipulate through credit. You are nudged into debt not because it helps you, but because it ties your future actions to the stability of the machine. The more you owe, the less you can afford to question the rules of the game. You have been trained to be a battery in a circuit, producing energy for a pyramid that you will never be allowed to climb. This is why inflation is not just an accident. It is the most efficient form of behavioral modification. By ensuring the currency in your pocket is designed to melt, the controllers force you to stay in constant motion. It punishes the patient saver and rewards the reckless borrower, ensuring that capital is always flowing toward the institutions that get to touch the new money first. This is the Cantillon effect scaled to the 21st century. Every round of money creation is a transfer of sovereignty from the individual to the institution. By the time you receive your paycheck, the purchasing power has already been siphoned off to fund the next government project or the next corporate bailout. You are working harder for a currency that buys less of the world, while those at the source are using that same currency to buy the world out from under you. So, how do you reclaim your sovereignty from a machine designed to extract it? History and the immutable laws of value offer a cold but clear escape route. To survive the control tool, you must stop measuring your life by the digits the system controls. You must move from being a consumer of late money to being a holder of real value. Real wealth is found in the things that cannot be printed, cloned, or deleted by an algorithm. It is found in productive land, the finite stage upon which all human life must perform. Land is the oldest ledger, and it remains the only asset that the state cannot manufacture out of thin air. It is found in specialized skills that solve enduring human needs because the system can dilute your savings, but it cannot devalue your character or your knowledge. It is found in hard assets like gold, which has outlived every paper empire and every control tool in human history. True financial freedom is not about having a high number on a screen. It is about reducing your dependency on the machine. As the philosopher King Marcus Aurelius practiced 2,000 years ago, true power is found in the sovereignty of the mind and the refusal to be ruled by external illusions. The financial system is designed to keep you emotionally overexposed and financially overleveraged. Breaking free requires the discipline to need less, to save real value, and to understand the game before it resets. The current global debt of over $315 trillion is a mountain of promises that can never be kept in the currency of today. A reset is inevitable, and when it comes, the only people standing will be those who anchored themselves to reality while everyone else was chasing digital shadows. In the next video, we will expose the paradox at the heart of the modern economy, why debt is rewarded and saving is punished. Because the system doesn't hate irresponsibility, it hates independence. History has answers. I merely show you where to look. And if this deep financial journey has given you a new perspective, like the video and subscribe, because the real story begins the moment you recognize the system you're living inside.